Since last April, I've been meeting occasionally with the clergy and wardens of our diocese in small groups, and we meet via Zoom because that's what we do nowadays. The topics of these occasional meetings have varied, but they often will focus on sharing ideas and concerns and wisdom about how to design and conduct worship during this pandemic and how to do so carefully and creatively. Well, a few weeks ago we met to discuss Lent and Ash Wednesday, and specifically if we were going to impose ashes, and if we did so, how do we do that? Or maybe we pass and focus more on the words. It was a very spirited conversation, how to balance what we do with what we're saying and to be careful about it. And at some point during this week of conversation, someone said, "Well, Bishop, why don't you just suspend Lent altogether? I mean, after all, we've all been living in Lent for nearly an entire year." The point's well made. I mean, never mind imposing ashes on our foreheads. Ashes have been imposed upon our entire existence, haven't they? In global pandemic, political unrest, racial division, natural disasters. And just beneath all these outward and visible signs lie the inner demons of the human condition that have kind of dogged us this year. Mistrust, anger, fear, despair, envy, jealousy. We've been forced to take on disciplines and to give up so much of what we love. I know of a number of churches in which there are urns of ashes stored away, ashes waiting to be put to rest, but remain in limbo until a time when families can safely gather together to return them to the earth. So much has been lost, canceled, postponed, missed. The year of Jubilee for our diocese that I announced at last year's convention became a year of lament. Still, even if I could, I'm not going to suspend this year's Lent, and nor should you, because the next 40 days are still very important for us. Why? Because as much as we are stumped by all that's going on in the world, as much as we are stymied by the limits and failures of our human condition that is framed with that refrain, "Remember that you are dust, and to dust you shall return." It's right there, right smack in the midst of the dust of our human condition, that we also are called to remember our divine connection. That eternal connection that whispers to us even now, but even at the grave, we make our song. And maybe this year, more so than many years, we might find ways to reconnect ourselves to that song and to reconnect ourselves to that divine connection. What I mean is that I am guilty of using Lent as a 40-day chance for self-help. I give up bad habits or I take on good habits, habits that don't reach much deeper than the habit itself. But in this year, in which each of us is far more in touch with our mortality and our frailty, maybe this year there is room to ponder ways that draw us closer to God, that draw us closer to each other, that whatever we decide to do, take on, give up, try out, is first and foremost about reconnecting to that divine connection. Maybe it's to try to take on acts of kindness and generosity that draw us out of our self-focused lives. Maybe it's to fast from things like the news or social media that provoke our anger and mistrust of those different from us. Maybe it's to take time to learn about an issue that seems to divide us from each other, or to find ways to understand more of the perspective of those in our society who have no place or power. Maybe it's to work to restore a broken relationship in your family or with a friend. Maybe it's to text less and pray more, and to let people know that you're praying for them. In other words, let's find ways for this Lent not to be so much about the things that we do, but the people around us. I mean, after all, it's through our connection with people that I think we become more aware of our connection with God. Let's commit ourselves to reorient our lives and to listen for that divine song of hope The book Beloved by Toni Morrison chronicles the life of Seth, a woman who escapes from slavery but cannot escape from its effects. Seth is literally haunted by the past, both by what has been done to her and by what she has done. And near the end of the story, her friend, a man named Paul, whose own life is marked by physical pain and he has a weary soul, he tells Seth, "Me and you, Seth, we got more yesterday than anybody. What we need is some kind of tomorrow." This year, this Lent, we all got a lot of yesterday, maybe more yesterday than most years. We need some kind of tomorrow. And you are watching this because you're a part of those who seek and trust in tomorrow, God's tomorrow. That tomorrow that says that on the other side of every loss and death, that there's more. That tomorrow that will greet us once more 40 days from now. So let's let this Lent be a time that we seek and search for that tomorrow today. Yes, remember your human condition. Remember that you are dust, but remember this as well. Remember your divine connection. You are marked as Christ's own forever. And what God has made and what God has marked, God will never lose. Amen.